What's the difference between Jew hatred on the political left and on the political right? Take a look at this clip over here with Sam Harris talking to Congressman Richie Toress. He's Democratic congressman from New York. So we'll listen to what they say and then talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
Okay, so let's talk about some very errant messaging post-October 7th, literally before Israel had done anything in response. We had an explosion of, it's not too far to say it, explicit support for the death cult that had murdered 1,200 people in Israel on October 7th. And the support was in the quads of our finest universities.
Yeah.
We know that it was not an accident. It was not purely organic, but obviously the sympathy was there to be leveraged by people taking to social media and, in many cases, directly funding protests. We definitely have an anti-Semitism problem. There's an anti-Semitism problem on the far right, obviously, and that's been with us forever. But there's one on the far left, which is increasingly shrill and increasingly hard for otherwise sane and ethical people to parse. I mean, it's understandable given the level of misinformation and disinformation spread on this topic. It's understandable that people are confused about what's happening there and about what Israel could be doing or should be doing. But the clear dissection of the depth of the confusion happened on October 8th, before Israel had done anything in response. We saw this explosion of support for, Hamas essentially as a legitimate resistance organization, right? Throwing off an occupation in Gaza that hadn't been occupied for, a decade and a half. What do you make of the animus toward Israel and just the animus toward Jews left of center in our politics now?
For me, October 7th did not change the state of anti-Semitism. It simply revealed a process that had been unfolding for a long time, a process of demonizing both the Jewish people and the Jewish state. And to your point, almost as troubling as October 7th itself was the response.
Mm-hmm.
On October 8th, I saw masses of Americans go to the heart of Times Square, the most Jewish city in the world, and celebrate and cheer the mass murder of Jews.
Mm.
I never thought, as a millennial who remembers the trauma of 9/11, I never thought in my wildest nightmares that Osama bin Laden's letter to America would be spreading virally on TikTok. And, there's no single explanation for what is unfolding in our politics, but it seems to me one of the most influential ideas on the far left, on college campuses, is the idea of intersectionality, which seems to divide the world into two categories: the oppressor versus the oppressed. And Israel is seen as the oppressor that can do no right. And Hamas is seen as the oppressed that can do no wrong. And that seems to be the distorting, simplistic lens through which the war in Gaza is seen, through which the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is seen. And it has deprived a whole generation of Americans of the ability to empathize with Israelis who were victims of the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust.
Yeah. I guess there's some doubt as to whether or not the Holocaust even happened in certain circles.
Right.
I mean, now we have some of the biggest podcasts on earth, platform people who are just asking questions about what happened in 1941 and 42, and maybe Hitler wasn't such a bad guy after all, and maybe they just accidentally killed Jews or killed them out of compassion because there were so many prisoners of war they just couldn't figure out what to do with them. And might it not be more compassionate to euthanize them rather than have them starve? And this is the kind of thing that is
Tucker Carlson's favorite historian.
Yeah, this is Tucker Carlson's favorite historian and one of Joe Rogan's favorite historians.
Who said that the central villain of World War II was not Adolf Hitler, it was
Yeah.
Winston Churchill,
Yeah.
which would have been unsayable only a few years ago.
Mm.
And it shows how corroded our culture has become by anti-Semitism, both on the far right and on the far left. But to your point, the far left anti-Semitism enjoys greater respectability
Right.
in American culture, in American media, in American education. And I find it ironic that the academic intelligentsia often has the least amount of moral intelligence. And that point was driven home to me during one of the congressional hearings. You might recall one of my colleagues asked the presidents of elite universities, is calling for a genocide of Jews harassment. Now, I'm from the Bronx. I represent a district where the median level of educational attainment is less than a college degree. But if you ask the average Bronxite, is calling for a genocide of Jews harassment, they would say, of course it is. It's worse than harassment. But if you ask an academic, you get a coldly legalistic, formulaic response. And it seems to me the loss of moral common sense is not a bug, but a feature of what the higher education industrial complex has become.
So there's a few good points that are made over here by Richie Torres, and I want to break down some, discuss some of them with you. So he makes a distinction between anti-Semitism on the left and anti-Semitism on the right, and that is very true. They are different nature. They come from a different place. From the left, it comes from a Marxist viewpoint of the world, as Richie Torres correctly pointed out, I believe, where he said that there's either oppressors or oppressed. And really the model, what makes a person an oppressor is success, and what makes a person and someone who is oppressed is someone that fails, or a nation that fails. And so if a person or a nation is successful, they only got that way because they are an oppressor. And if a person or nation fails, they only got that way because they were oppressed. It has nothing to do with their personal decisions, their choices, whatnot. It's only because someone or something oppressed them. And so since Israel is successful, and since the Jews worldwide writ large are looked upon as a successful group of people, so they become the oppressors, whereas the Palestinians, those living in Gaza and whatnot, are seen as are not doing as well, and so they're seen as they got that way because they are oppressed. Doesn't not because of their personal choices, not because they elected Hamas, not because of anything that was on them. It's something, some force out there that oppressed them into oblivion. So that's one thing. That's the nature of where anti-Semitism comes from on the left. On the right, it has a variety of manifestations. Some on the far right use religion as the backdrop, and Jews are seen are demonized from a religious point of view, like back in the old school days when religion backdropped society and civilization. Some on the far right use religion as the wielding force against the Jews. Some hyper focus on isolationism and said we shouldn't be in Israel, we shouldn't be aiding Israel, we shouldn't let Israel be lobbying here. There's a lot of other countries that lobby here. There's a lot of other aid that we give across the world and more than Israel, but we'll single out Israel as the villain in our grand scheme of not wanting to give money outside of the United States, be isolationist, don't get involved in foreign wars. And again, I hear this concept, but why is it the hyper focus on Israel as opposed to the many other nations that take our aid and have political clout and influence in our government and so forth? So they come from two different places or two different sorts of animals. There's another interesting point, another very good point, I think, that Richie Torres makes over here, and that's regarding the mainstreamness how it manifests on the left and on the right. Now Richie Torres is a member of the Democratic Party, he's on the left, but he says something that is reflective of his own party, and says that on the left, it seems to be something, the left sort of anti-Semitism, this oppressor-oppressed mindset, the anti-Israel mindset, is something that is embraced and accepted. It's championed. It's mainstream, right? So you'll have the academic world, you have mainstream media sources, you'll have intellectuals, you have main people in the Democratic Party that are supportive of these viewpoints. And so you'll have a person like Richie Toress who stands out, or John Fetterman who stands out because a lot of their party are not in that camp. And so when you see a John Fetterman or a Richie Toress, it's like a novelty over there. So on the left, this anti-Semitism, anti-Israel perspective is something that is embraced. It's something that is incorporated into the mainstream thought. On the right, as of now, it's still something that is sort of looked upon as fringe. Unfortunately, it is growing, especially in online world, but it's still considered something fringe. Leaders in the Republican Party, people on the right, people that are considered conservatives, they are looking at this growing group of people that are consider themselves on the right as more fringe. And they do tend to be people that are more either consider themselves to be libertarian or in their own category. If they're younger, they call themselves red-pilled. They're independent thinkers. They're not confined to the structures and patterns of thought that have shaped our civilization and shaped our culture. And they'll come to their own conclusions, and that whatever, that it is what it is. But they're still considered to be the fringe of the conservative movement. So in any case, these are very important things to know, very important things to keep in mind. And if you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.